I stood by the window of our apartment in Chicago, staring at the blinking cursor on the last text I sent her. "How's orientation going? Miss you already." That was 3 days ago. No reply, no call, no goodnight texts, just silence. My name is Bryce. I'm 35, a freelance software developer, mostly remote. I stayed behind so she could chase her dream job, an executive assistant role at a tech startup in Austin. We had talked about it for weeks. She was excited, nervous. I was supportive. I packed her bags. I drove her to the airport. I kissed her goodbye, promising we'd get through the distance. But I never imagined this kind of distance. At first, I brushed it off. New job, new city, she's busy. That's normal, right? But then her social media went dark. No stories, no updates. I called her, voicemail. I emailed, nothing. 3 days of radio silence from the woman who used to text me, "Good morning," before brushing her teeth. That's when the doubt crept in. A whisper at first. Maybe she's overwhelmed. Then louder. Or maybe she's hiding something. I tried to ignore it. I really did. I told myself I was being paranoid. I kept working. I cooked for one. I slept on her side of the bed, just to feel close. Then, on the 5th day, I saw something. I wasn't even looking for it. I was tagging her in a meme when her name popped up in a tagged photo. Someone else's story. A group selfie from a rooftop bar in Austin. There she was, smiling wide, sitting way too close to a guy I didn't recognize. And that guy? He was wearing a ring. So was she. But it wasn't mine. I stared at that photo like it held a code I needed to crack. I zoomed in, again and again. She was definitely wearing a ring on her left hand, not just any ring either. It wasn't the silver band I had given her 2 years ago. This was gold, thicker, flashier, and her hand was resting on his leg. The caption read, "Great night with the Austin Fam Heart Texas vibes." I clicked on his profile. Public. His name was Marcus Sloan. The next 10 minutes were a blur of scrolling. I found photos of him at the same company she had joined. Her company, same building, same startup retreat 2 months ago, back when we were still discussing whether she should even apply. Then I saw it, a wedding photo, not old, new, Marcus in a tux, my wife in a white dress, standing under a cheap arch made of fairy lights. It was dated last weekend. My stomach turned. It wasn't even disbelief. It was a kind of betrayal that rewrote reality. My wife had married another man in another state, while still legally married to me. I wanted to throw something, punch a wall, scream, but I didn't. Instead, I opened a new tab, and I bought a one-way ticket to Austin. The air in Austin felt different, warmer, heavier. As the plane touched down, I wasn't sure what I was more, angry, heartbroken, or numb. Maybe all three, tangled together like wires behind a busted TV. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. Not my friends, not my family. I needed answers, not advice. I checked into a cheap motel off Burnett Road. 1 night, maybe 2. That was all I'd need. I wasn't here to stay. I was here to confirm what I already feared and confront the woman who had rewritten my life behind my back. I waited until the next morning, and then I went to the address I found through one of Marcus's tagged photos. It was a modern apartment complex, gated. But fate must have been feeling dramatic that day, because just as I pulled up to the side gate, a delivery guy was coming out. I slipped in behind him, unnoticed. I climbed the stairs. Apartment 3B. I didn't knock. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the door, my heart hammering in my chest. Then I heard laughter, her laughter. muffled but unmistakable. And then his voice, deeper, confident, comfortable. I stepped back, still unseen, and walked down the hall like a ghost. She wasn't just visiting, she lived there, and she sounded happy. I wanted to barge in and demand an explanation, but something held me back. Maybe it was the sound of her laughing, or maybe it was knowing that whatever she said wouldn't make this any less real. So instead, I did what anyone in my place might have done. I took out my phone, and I started recording. I sat in my rental car across the street, replaying the recording over and over. Her voice, his voice, laughter. There was something disturbingly normal about it. Like they were a real couple. Like I had never existed. I didn't sleep that night. I barely blinked. The next morning, I decided to do what I thought I'd never do. I followed him. Marcus left the apartment around 8:20 a.m., dressed in business casual, coffee in hand, keys jingling, like any other man heading to work. I trailed him in my car, careful not to get too close. He pulled into a modest building just off downtown, City Development Office. I Googled it. He wasn't just some random guy. He worked for the city. I sat with that for a second. And then I searched marriage records, public, legal. All it took was his full name and a few minutes. And there it was. Marcus D. Langston, married, spouse, Ava J. Langston. Date, 4 months ago. 4 months ago. She hadn't even moved out of our place 4 months ago. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands shook. She hadn't just lied to me. She'd become someone else. I didn't know whether to scream, laugh, or throw my phone out the window. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't over. I drove back to my hotel, every muscle in my body tensed. My heart was racing, not from shock anymore, but from betrayal, pure and clean. She married him, not after we divorced, not after a separation, during us. And now everything made sense. The work trips, the extended conferences, the late-night phone calls she'd take outside. All those weekends she insisted on going alone to see her mom in Phoenix. Phoenix was Marcus, and I had no clue. I started collecting everything. Emails, texts, calendars, photos. Anything that could create a timeline. Anything that could prove how deeply she'd lied. And when I zoomed in on a selfie she had sent me from her hotel room, I noticed something in the reflection behind her. A man's coat. Marcus's coat. I recognized it from the security footage. She wasn't even trying to hide it, just assuming I'd never look that close. That I was too trusting, too stupid. I felt like a ghost in my own life. Like I had been living in a story someone else had written, and now the pages were burning in my hands. I wanted answers, but more than that, I wanted to make sure this story didn't end quietly. I waited until she came back into town, said I wanted to talk about refinancing the house. She agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop not far from where we first met. Ironic, when she walked in, she looked normal, calm, like she wasn't carrying the weight of 2 marriages on her shoulders. I had the documents in my bag, printouts, screenshots, photos, flight records. I didn't start with those. I started with a question. Did you love me? She blinked, taken off guard. Of course I did. Why would you even ask that? I nodded slowly, trying not to shake. Then why did you marry Marcus while we were still together? Her face froze, like a screen glitching in real time. Her lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Who told you that? You did. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Her hand trembled as she opened it. I watched her eyes dart across the photos. Her wedding certificate, The selfie with the coat, the dinner reservation under both their names weeks before she even filed for divorce. This isn't what you think, then tell me what it is. But she didn't. She just stared at me like I was the villain, like I had destroyed her life. You were never supposed to find out, she whispered. And there it was, the real her. Not the woman I fell in love with, not the wife I defended against everyone's suspicions. This version of her had secrets layered like armor. And now that I had pierced them, she wasn't apologetic. She was angry. Because she'd been caught, she stormed out of the coffee shop without another word. No denial, no apology. Just silence and the echo of her heels on the sidewalk. I sat there for a while, hands still shaking, heart pounding. It was like grieving someone who hadn't died, just revealed a version of themselves I never knew existed. That night, I packed up everything she'd left in the house. Every photo, every piece of clothing, every reminder of a life that clearly wasn't real. I left the box at her sister's place. No note, no message. She called the next morning, not to apologize, not to explain, but to say I was ruining everything by involving her family. You made this ugly, she said, and I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. No, I said. You made this ugly the day you said I do to me while still being married to him. She hung up. That was the last time I heard her voice. The fallout wasn't just emotional, it was legal. Divorce proceedings got ugly fast. Turns out bigamy isn't just immoral, it's criminal in some states. But I didn't press charges. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And slowly, I started rebuilding. It took months before I stopped checking my phone, expecting another lie to drop like a bomb. I threw myself into work, into therapy, into silence. There were nights I'd lie awake, wondering how I could have missed it all, wondering if love had made me blind, or if I had just wanted so badly to believe in her that I ignored the signs. But then, peace came, slow and subtle, like learning how to breathe again after being underwater too long. I moved to a new apartment in the city. Nothing flashy, just mine. One night, as I sat on the balcony watching the lights flicker below, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her, not at him, not even at myself. Some people lie because they're afraid. Some cheat because they're empty. But I survived. I told the truth. I loved with my whole heart, and that's something they'll never take from me. She took a job in another state, but left the truth behind. I found it. I lived through it. And now, I'm free.